Hey guys, welcome to week 9. This week's top score and the biggest blowout were the same game again. Seems to be a pattern the last couple weeks. This week, top score and biggest blowout was Nick taking down Brandon, T-bowing 747, defeating Saved by the Bell. The score in that game was 132.7 to 100. Brandon, thank you for making the math really easy for me on this one. That is a 32.7 point margin. After the last couple of weeks, Nick has lost a couple games where his opponent's wide receiver has gone off for one of the top scorers in the league. So Nick decided to take that matter into his own hands this week, getting T.Y. Hilton into his starting lineup. T.Y.'s 35 points were the top scoring wide receiver performance this week. Additionally, 5 other players scored between 10 and 20 points this week for T-bowing, led by 19.5 points from Jared Cook and 17 points from Demaryius Thomas. Brandon's top 2 scorers in this matchup came from the Seattle offense as Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin led his team. Wilson's 23.5 points and Doug Baldwin's 20 points were the top 2 scorers for his team. Unfortunately, Saved by the Bell's namesake, Le'Veon Bell, couldn't save him this week as Pittsburgh was on a bye. The 32-point margin could have been closed the gap as there was about a 30 points differential between 2 guys on the bench for Brandon and a couple of his starters. That would have only closed the gap to about a 2 or 3 point margin. However, Kansas City's defense was Brandon's starting defense, and any waiver wire defense that's out there right now would have been enough to get over that 3-point margin. So, would have required several moves, and starting Kansas City's defense has been good this year, and it just didn't work out for him this week. And then with Nick's team namesake, Tim Tebow, I decided I wanted to see what he's been up to. I figured he was playing Fall League Baseball, and it turns out that was not the case. He has returned to his ESPN desk analyst job, covering some terrible football conference called the SEC. I don't know anything about that. I've never heard of it before. This week's closest game, Derek and his never-ending love of bouncing boobies took down Pray for Mojo Jason, 115 to 113. For the math scholars from the last joke, that's a 2-point margin this time. Again, more easy math. This was a shootout on Monday night that came down right to the end of the game. Derek combined with 3 players in the game. Matt Stafford's 25.4 points, Matt Prater's with 13 points, and the Lions' defense with 6.5 points managed to outpace Jason's Amir Abdullah, who put up 10 points. Despite Jason entering Monday night with a healthy 32-point lead, he ended up on the losing end this week. Derek, I hope you're happy. You benefited from the Packers being terrible, and I hope you feel bad. There's no beer review this week. In the time that it took me to write up my notes this week, I only made it through about a half a beer, and I'm still drinking Franz's Connor from last week, so there's no new review. In other games this week, I'm Gumby, damn it. Pope 1.0 defeated I Win Because Y'all Drafted Josh, 92 to 80. Cam Newton's 20 points led in the matchup for Josh, but O.J. Howard's negative score of -1 significantly hurt Josh's chance to grab win number 2 for the year. John Bobbitt Chris put up 95 points, taking down Gridiron Junkies Andy, 95 to 89. The 50 points that Jacoby Brissett and Alvin Kamara combined for barely managed to keep Chris ahead of Andy, as he only won by 6 points. Down goes Teddy. Lee took down Dak Deuce. Drew, 112 to 98. Jared Goff continues his reign of terror, putting up 31.5 points this week against the Giants, with 4 touchdowns and 300-plus passing yards. That's a hell of a waiver wire pickup, especially to replace Aaron Rodgers. And finally, Gronky Kong, myself, defeated the second coming, Pope 2.0, 94 to 88. Marvin Jones led this matchup in scoring with 26.2 points, but could not make up for the goose egg that Kaimi Fairbairn dropped at Pope 2.0's kicker slot. Last week's waiver wire recap, I think this is the first time that I highlighted 3 players last week, and all 3 of them managed to get into the starting lineup this week. Alex Collins was the big bidder last week for $26 going to Brandon. Unfortunately, he only got about 5 points from him in the starting lineup this week. The 2 Miami backs that we highlighted, Kenyon Drake going to Drew, got 13.5 points from him, and Damian Williams going to me scored 15 points. This week's waiver wire predictions, because I'm recording this on Tuesday, I don't know. There's some people out there, but I don't really see a significant. Hey, like Alex Collins last week was a surefire. Hey, everybody's going after him. I don't really see that this week. The couple names I jotted down: Thomas Rawls. If you really want to try to ride the Seattle running game, I guess, since Eddie Lacy's hurt and Rawls is probably the only back that's healthy now, I guess. If you need a quarterback, I'm not entirely sure who's all on bye this week, but Josh McCown is out there. He had a good game, and he's been okay the last couple weeks. I don't know about anybody else, but I put in a bid for the Bears defense because Green Bay sucks, and they play each other next week. Kind of feel bad about that, but yeah. Hopefully it's a reverse jinx and Green Bay wins. I'll take it. And then I'm sure everybody's going to be in on Josh Gordon because somebody's going to bet that he's going to go off and he won't get suspended again. There were no wager matchups this week, so no updates to anything on that front. And finally, if you go to the Yahoo web app, you'll notice that this week is flared as Rivalry Week. At the beginning of the season, when I set the schedule, I went through it, and I have the ability to flag something as a Rivalry Week, which I decided was this week. You'll notice that everybody that plays has some sort of a matchup this week, which I have so gracefully dubbed everybody a bowl game name, so we'll see how this goes. Some of them are funnier than others, some of them suck. I do what I can. So Chris and Drew playing this week in the Pioneer Bowl. A couple guys met from Platteville. The Midwest Manufacturing Bowl, Andy versus Josh. The Scott's Tire Bowl, which I think is a real bowl, and you could probably figure out who's playing in that matchup. The Noob Bowl, featuring our two newest teams in the league, Brandon versus Pope 2.0. The Isabel Bowl, Jason versus Lee. And I actually went to the sponsor and approved that joke before I made it. And finally, last but not least, the Asshole Bowl, Derek versus Nick. See you next week. Good luck.